Leaving Galicia, I'm now heading northeast through the dramatic wooded countryside of Asturias. My destination is the Atlantic coastal resort of Ribadesella, and this is where the Spanish come in summer to escape the fierce southern sun. It's about 10 degrees cooler here, so much nicer than the burning heat of month after month. It's got sea looking out to the Bay of Biscay, lovely beaches. It's green. And in the distance, as the morning mist clears, the mountains reveal themselves. So come here, and if they could, people built houses and made gardens. And I'm going to visit one of those gardens, which is like the others in principle, but very different in one important respect. This is Finca El Cueto, and until about 40-odd years ago, this was just a small holding with no house. But this house behind me is over 300 years old, and therein lies the story. Because originally, it was situated about 16 kilometers from here, and the garden built up around it and became mature. And then a mine was opened just nearby, and the house was literally undermined. So the owners, naturally enough, decided to move. But instead of just taking themselves away, they decided to take the house and the garden with them. This meant uprooting borders, trees, and hedges, including these magnificent box hedges. Now, this is 50 years ago, so obviously they've grown, and they must have cut them back hard to move them. But they've taken to their new home incredibly well. I don't think I've ever seen healthier or happier box hedging. Within these immaculately clipped hedges, the garden is green and luxuriant in growth, with magnificent views out to the Picos de Europa mountains in the distance. And like the house, it looks as though it has always been here. One of the fascinating things about this garden to me is it reminds me of the gardens when I was growing up in the 60s and starting to garden seriously in the 70s. Particularly things like the shrubs, immaculately grown here, in-mown grass. And I like the way also that everything here has a meaning, has a story. For example, the two ilex oaks were brought here, apparently, as acorns from Dublin, where a member of the family was ambassador, planted. And now, of course, they're growing into large trees. And it does also include these fabulous ferns. And that is a measure of the climate here, because they're tender. And it doesn't get too cold in winter, but it is very wet, which of course the ferns love. So we have this lushness and mildness, but also in summer, lots of sunshine. Perfect for gardens. As a rule, I'm not a great fan of bougainvillea, but the one on the house is lovely. And like everything else here, there's a story attached to it. The original position of the house did not have bougainvillea, and it wasn't on here when they first re-erected it. But on a trip to Kenya, they so admired the depth and intensity of the color of the bougainvillea they saw there, they brought back seeds, and now that has become part of the garden too. This part of the garden, superficially at least, looks as though it could be in, I don't know, 100,000 English gardens. You've got box hedges with modern English roses and herbaceous borders growing